Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Altitude Angel and Coptrz on achieving safer skies, enhancing safety and visibility in drone operations. Incredibly important operations, incredibly important points for the industry. We're delighted that Ryan Shelswell from Coptrz and Phil Binks from Altitude Angel have joined us. Phil is head of ATM at Altitude Angel and previously worked for the ANSP at NATS, where he held the position of ARPAS domain expert and solution architect. So as a result, he has a huge amount of experience in this area. He understands the complexities of integrating drones safely into our airspace. Ryan is head of training and technology at Coptrz, one of the oldest, and as much as one can say that of an RAE in the drone industry, of the oldest of the RAE establishments in the UK, and has a number of years of experience in the drone industry and has, I think, covered most roles within Coptrz too. So that's fantastic. He's been instrumental in managing and collaborating on projects with high stakes enterprise customers, so fully understands the need for planning and safety within an operational atmosphere. So I am going to hand over to these gentlemen and we will go from there. First of all, do you want to share the presentation? That's probably the first section before I disappear and turn my own screen off.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and share what I've got. Hopefully you guys can give me the nod to say if you can see it.
There we go. It's
right,
just
so
coming
I'll put it into slideshow mode.
Yeah.
There, that should be in slideshow mode now. Hopefully, is that okay for everybody to see?
That is in slideshow mode. That's great.
Right.
Fantastic. Just to confirm, hang on 2 seconds, Phil. We will have Q&A at the end of the session. So please add your questions into the Q&A, which is in the taskbar. And ask your questions. We will hopefully provide the answers and we will go from there. If any questions aren't answered during the session, then we'll make a note of them and add those into our follow-up email to everyone. Okay, Phil, it's all yours.
Right, well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me to come along to speak today. Straight away, you got a mugshot of me, but I'll move on from there because we've already had the introductions. So this afternoon, then, very quick overview. It's the visibility of the skies. Air traffic control, they can see the skies, they can see what they need to manage and stuff, but we need a slightly different view for the unmanned world or uncrewed systems. Looking at the challenges, then, the stakeholders who need to get involved, who'd like to be involved in this kind of activity. And then Ryan will start talking to you about training before I come back and give you a little bit of insight into some of the services or the technologies that Altitude Angel are bringing to a fore, or did I say world leading? So who can see, or visibility at the moment, and who can see what? Well, the obvious one is air traffic control, of course. They need to be able to understand where their aircraft are. And of course, by doing that, and how they do that today in the main is by using radar. That could be primary radar or secondary radar, which gives you a little bit more information. Primary sends out a pulse of energy, comes back, bounces back, and you can detect where the aircraft is. Doesn't tell you too much about the aircraft. Secondary radar came in and you started to be able to interrogate what the aircraft's doing, and you get that little bit more information, and you can find out call signs and all these other bits and pieces. And then finally, Mode S came along, and that was sort of a game changer. It gave us so much more information, or gave the air traffic controllers so much more information about the aircraft flying around. The key to that, though, it is all tuned to be seeing the crewed aviation. I mean, that's what it's all about, to see crewed aviation. And that, in the UK, is primarily focused on controlled airspace. That's where the commercial aircraft fly, and that's the main priority for NATS. However, there is that is a bit of an overgeneralization, because also we have what we call LARS units as well, lower airspace radar services. And these are airfields, airports that have provide radar services out to about 30 miles from the airport, and they get to see a little bit more at a slightly lower level. But again, it is still focused on that, on the crewed aviation. And that was all about it, really. That they are the people who are actively involved in managing the airspace and the airframes that are controlling around the airframes that are flying around that airspace. But is there anybody else that needs to be out there? Well, with crewed aviation, any other stakeholder, you probably only find out about what's going on in the sky is if you had an airspace change proposal and the CAP 1616 document from the Civil Aviation Authority. And that's when there's going to be changes to the airspace. Perhaps he goes from uncontrolled airspace to controlled airspace and introduces new regulations. However, uncrewed aviation is very, very different. There seems to be an awful lot more people who wish to get involved, a lot larger number of stakeholders, and that's primarily because there's a perceived risk, there's a change in risk and behaviours that occur with uncrewed aviation. So who've you got first then? Well, who needs to know about it? Yes, you have the airspace manager, but also if you're in an airport or in an airport environment, you've got security. As we know, we had a bit of a Gatwick had an incident back in 2018. It closed the airport for a number of days. So from there, security are very, very interested, and the police are very, very interested. So that's just two other authorities who wish to know about what is now going on in the sky. But if you're operating away from the airport, who else needs to know? Well, we're starting to understand, we're starting to engage with councils. Councils are very, very keen to understand what is actually going on in the sky. Because primarily, the drones are now operating at a lot lower level to crewed aviation, and therefore it is directly affecting probably the population now. And people are potentially going to be able to see these things, hear these things, and they want to know what is going on. So the councils are taking a keen interest about how drones are going to be used within their airspace. And also that goes for landowners as well. But also, what about other airspace users? As the skies get busier, there's a lot more information, or there's a lot more data that needs to be shared. We need to know where these drones are operating. Firstly, primarily, other drone operators can understand where they're operating, and obviously they need to, with visual line, with VLOS operations, other drones need to be able to look at the sky and see what is going on. And are there other mechanisms they can help them, support them, understanding what's going in the sky? Obviously, general aviation is very concerned. Likewise, with military and emergency services. We are operating at this sub 500-foot level, and a lot of military helicopters fly there, emergency service helicopters there. So the key is then we need to share the information about who is flying where and what are they flying to a large number of stakeholders in order to maintain a level of safety. And therefore, we need to bring together a single point of truth to understand what is going on in the airspace. So what are those challenges then that we are actually facing? As I briefly mentioned, though, the current limitations of ATM radar or ATM sensors is the radar. And ATM radar is designed to see large lumps of metal, and energy bounces off, and it's very, very easy to detect. However, there's the radars are very, very expensive, and they are line of sight. So the further you are from the radar head, the base level of that radar, the base level of what it can see, is higher. When I went through training, they used to teach every 10 miles out from radar head, the base level of radar goes up 1,000 feet. So if you're 10 miles from radar head, the base level is 1,000 feet. 20 miles from radar head, the base level is 2,000 feet, so on and so forth. And of course, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at the sub 500 feet. So if we're operating at sub 500 feet, how are we going to see using the radars? We could perhaps get more radars in or point the radars down slightly lower to the ground. However, this introduces another problem. You do end up getting clutter in the picture. So it will distract you from what it is you actually want to detect, i.e. you want to detect crewed and uncrewed aviation, but you start to get in surface clutter. So you start to get to see trees, buildings and stuff like that. And then also you have a problem with radars. You start to get in volume clutter. So you start to detect, weather activity and stuff like that. So again, you're making a picture very, very cloudy, or a lot of cluster on the picture or the ATCO to decide what is actually going on. And then you get a thing called point clutter as well, and that's birds. There are ways to filter these elements out. And there's a thing we can put in a speed gauge. So a lot of radars will have a speed gauge put in, and that will say, right, anything that's going slower than 60 miles an hour, we'll filter out. Because generally, crewed aviation travels more than 60 miles an hour. However, of course, that builds in a problem where a lot of drones or uncrewed aviation aren't flying that fast, and therefore it will filter it out and we won't be able to see it. We also have rain problems. Heavy rain, that can cause a big problem as well. There are things like polarization you can introduce to clear out that rain. But anyway, that also, it clears out very small, slow-moving objects. And finally, you can, there are some clever radars with Doppler radar, X-band radars, where you change the Doppler frequency. I'm not technically minded, but those Doppler radars are designed to see the small things. However, there is a problem through all of these, and that again is that they are expensive. And in order to see that sub 500 feet, you're going to have an awful lot of these radars dotted around, and therefore does it become cost effective? So what we're looking at now is how we introduce technology, which is Coptrz products, use them in a slightly different way in order to see or understand what is going on in that 500-foot bit of airspace. So radars are too expensive. So what else can we use? And we start introducing things like RF technology, camera technology, ADS-B, FLAN, GPS. And as you start to build in all these technologies, you can start to layer a picture together to understand what is going on. We are then establishing a number of towers. Having those towers relatively close to each other, about 10 miles apart, we fill in the gap below the radar. So that's the base of radar cover. We can fill that space up to start to get a single point of truth. And that is the most critical thing in order to maintain an element of safety. As well as having this, we need to try and encourage the right behaviours, and that is for submitting a flight plan. So to tell people you're there. As soon as you digitalise information, we can disseminate that information across many platforms. Crewed aviation currently does that today. If they wish to have an air traffic control service from the likes of NATS, they must submit a flight plan to say what it is they're doing. So why shouldn't we have the same approach for uncrewed aviation? And that's not just if you wish to enter controlled airspace, but regardless of what airspace you wish to enter, whether it's open FIR, Class G airspace, uncontrolled, or controlled airspace, if we can encourage people to submit a flight plan, put it onto a digital platform, then it can be disseminated, and then it enables other airspace users to understand what is going on. And we start to establish a safety net in order to ensure safe integrated drone operations. So that's what I'm going to say at the moment on that. And I'll hand you over to Ryan so he can talk through his element of training. And then I'll come back to you on some of the technology that Altitude Angel have introduced.
Ryan, great, thanks for that, Phil. I'm just going to share my presentation. Bear with me a second. Right, okay, just make sure everyone can see that. Can you see that, Phil?
That works very nicely. Yeah, brilliant, perfect.
Right, okay, fantastic. So as Phil said, I'm just going to give you guys a basic overview of the current training and the current regulations. Obviously, there are a lot more in-depth elements to this, but this is going to be kind of a good general overview of the current training and what the CAA are trying to achieve really with the current regulations. So under the current regulations, the primary focus is on safety. In simple terms, the greater the risk, the higher level of training that's needed and more oversight is needed depending on how high the risk is. So the key areas that we're looking at when we're talking about the risk are the air risks, obviously. So the potential of collisions with manned aircraft or other unmanned aircraft. Any ground risks, so collisions that potentially could happen with people or any kind of critical infrastructure, and privacy and security. So it's not just the aviation regulations that we're necessarily looking at, it's also looking at privacy and security issues. So the regulations are basically designed to cover 3 areas. So firstly, looking at the operation, so the type of operation or drone flight that you're undertaking, and the consequences if something does go wrong of that actual operation. So looking at the area of operation, what kind of aircraft you're flying, and other factors. Also looking at risk-based. So the higher the risk, in simple terms, the more visibility the remote operator or the remote pilot or the crew will need to have of that specific operation. And the final one, performance-based. So looking at identifying the necessary capabilities of the actual equipment and the performance levels of that equipment. So when combining those 3 areas, that's what we're using to identify how risky an operation is, and therefore what category of training is or isn't required. So I've tried to simplify this down as much as possible for anybody who's new to the regulations. So in simple terms, there's 3 categories. So the open category, which is, as it says there, defined as the low risk category, the specific category, which is defined as medium risk, and then the certified category, which is looking at high risk operations. There are various elements that define how operations fall into these categories, but I've broken them down into the key areas. So just looking at the low risk in the open category. So the application process for that one is there's no CAA application required, but you may need some training provided by an RAE. So depending on various factors, there may be no training that you need specifically, or you may need to look at doing what we call the A2 CFC. Now, just to make the open category a little bit more complicated, it is split into 3 separate subcategories, which we'll cover in a moment. And just so you have a brief understanding of what each of the subcategories are. So moving on to the medium risk. So this is a category, if you're operating in this category, it is going to require a CAA application. So you would need to complete what's known as the GVC certificate to obtain your operational authorization, and that is an approval given by the CAA themselves. What that allows you to do is fly with somewhat reduced limitations if the operation that you're trying to perform can't be achieved within the low risk open category. And then moving into the certified category, which is the high risk category, again, requires a CAA application, but this on top of the GVC has equivalent requirements to that of manned aviation. So a couple of examples just under the bottom there. So this would be looking at things like passenger transportation and transporting dangerous goods using unmanned vehicles. So I mentioned the 3 categories within the low risk open category. So we'll just move on to those here. So the open category is split into 3 sections: A1, A2, and A3. As I've said before, there are more complexities and more requirements to ascertain whether your operation falls into the A1, the A2, or the A3, but they are set out by the CAA clearly, so you can look at the equipment and the operation that you're performing, and you can quite easily identify which of the subcategories it falls into. But in simple terms, the A1 is flying close to people and potential overflight. A2, flying close to people with no overflight, and the A3 for operations flying far from people with no overflight. So you'll be pleased to hear that the specific category isn't split into any more subcategories, but as we've covered already, requires a CAA application, allows you to fly with reduced limitations that are not attainable if your operation does not fit into the open category. So the operator would need to apply to the CAA for an operational authorization. That would be following completing training with an RAE and obtaining the necessary certification from the RAE to put that permission into the CAA. And then moving on to the certified category, as we've mentioned already, this is a category that has really high risk factors. So it's looking at high risk operations and has equivalent requirements to manned aviation. So there's going to be a lot more focus in there on risks, what the risks are, what has been done to mitigate those risks, and the potential issues if anything does go wrong. So it does say the pilot there is expected to hold the appropriate pilot's license, if you like, associated with the type of operation. So moving on to the planning side, which is the primary reason for the webinar that we're running today. So just a couple of things that jump out to me really why planning is important within UAV operations. So it's important to note that flight plans are not just paperwork. They're your blueprint that you can use and replicate for safe missions. A well thought out plan is going to help prevent accidents and ensure the safety of people and property on the ground. Obviously, if you have a well thought out plan, things can still go wrong, but as long as you've planned ahead, you can have the mitigations in place to deal with things as they develop. Also, you want to ensure that you're compliant with regulations because it's going to preserve your integrity, your drone's integrity, and your reputation as a drone operator. As Phil's already alluded to, visibility and awareness are going to be the big ones for flight plans. It's making your presence known to other airspace users, including manned aviation, so not just drone users or other unmanned vehicle users. And what we're trying to achieve ultimately is contributing to a safer sky and give everyone better visibility and ultimately reduce incidents. And then, obviously, as I've covered already, things can go wrong, emergencies do happen, but a submitted flight plan could be invaluable for search and rescue efforts or any following investigation regarding an incident. It helps any responders know what they're looking for, where they're looking for, and ultimately it could lead to saving lives and also not wasting resources. So that's really important. We've kind of touched on this already as well, and it just demonstrates your professionalism and trust as an operator. Just showing that you're committed to safety, you're committed to professional operations, and then clients and any other stakeholders within those operations are more likely to have trust in the operator if they can see that a proper planning process has been followed and obviously the actual flight plans have been logged and shared with other airspace users. And ultimately, for your peace of mind, you know if something does go wrong, you have done everything that you can to ensure that there's a safe flight, and it gives not only you, but your clients and anyone in the operation area peace of mind. And it gives you the ability then on the day to actually focus on the mission in hand. And you can be confident that you've taken every precaution. And final one is just a little bit of a quote that I think is probably the key takeaway from me about the training and the planning. Flight plans are not just paperwork. They're your commitment to safety and professionalism, which is going to be key moving forward in the drone industry for new and existing operators. So you'll be pleased to know that's all from me. So I'm going to hand back over to Phil. That's all right with you, Phil, and let you cover the rest of the sections.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. Let me just work out what button I've got to push again. What's going on? I don't know what you guys can see at the moment.
We can see your screen. Just need to put it into show mode, so to speak.
There we go. Hopefully you can see everything again now.
Yes, we can.
Is that okay? Is it? Right. Thank you, Ryan. Just as Ryan was saying, you know, the flight plans are very, very important, and they're there for so many reasons. But of course, the key to the flight plans is well, what happens to them, and how you're going to get them into a system so we can share them. And the key to all of this is it's got to be made easy. If we don't make submitting a flight plan simple and easy to do on numerous platforms, people are less likely to do it. So we can try and make it intuitive and make it very, very quick for people to do. They are more likely to adopt the right behaviours. So on this slide, as you can see here, we've got right in the middle there, we've got Guardian UTM platform, and that's our operating system. That's where all the data, lots and lots of data gets fed into. And that could be ground data, but more importantly, as we're talking about here, is the flight plan data. So we need to have many tools in order to submit those flight plans. Some of you may be familiar with some of these I'm just about to talk about, the likes of Drone Assist. You can go onto Drone Assist and you can submit a flight plan through Drone Assist. The Drone Safety Map as well, an online function. So Drone Assist on your mobile phone, when you're out and about, I wish to fly, I can submit a flight plan. Absolutely fantastic. Drone Safety Map, well, perhaps in your office or perhaps you're at home going, oh, it might be nice to go flying tomorrow or something along those lines. Let me go and check what the weather is, where I can fly, and do your standard safety checks to make sure you are flying with accordance to the rules of the air in that location. It is safe for you to fly in that location. So you can do a bit of planning in that one. And those people who have fleets of drones, or those people who have a company, they might have their own operator portal. But the key to these, those are the elements that Altitude Angel actually supply, and an ability for people to submit flight plans into Guardian UTM. But of course, there are many, many apps out there. And this is where we feel it very, very important that we must be able to. Third-party apps must be able to integrate into Guardian UTM as well. We're not we're not arrogant enough to think only our apps can submit flight plans into Guardian UTM. We are designed there to provide an open UTM system to enable third-party apps so people can submit flight plans, and once we've submitted those flight plans, we can disseminate them across many, many platforms, which is absolutely critical. So just to reinforce what Ryan said, you know, it is an element of professionalism. It doesn't matter if you're operating in controlled airspace or uncontrolled airspaces. It's trying to instill the right behaviours to submit a flight plan. They're very, very important. So what happens then when you do submit a flight plan? Well, quite simple. Here we go. We've got a picture here of effectively Drone Assist. So when somebody submits a flight plan, let's say they submit it on their mobile phones, that information becomes digitalized. Once that information becomes digitalized, it can be disseminated across all of our estates. Any platform that we supply to any organization, any ANSP, any authority, they can now see that drone, or a drone has been is due to take place. A drone flight is due to take place. This is all about managing that data there. So there's also an element where people go, well, actually, I might not want people to know about me flying in a particular location. So it's accessing that data to understand who should see what and what information they should see. So if you were to submit a flight plan, when a flight plan comes into us, you put in your details, you put in your name, your flyer ID, other little bits and pieces of that information. You quite rightly don't want Joe Public to know everything about that flight or everything about yourself. So we restrict the information that actually goes into the system, or sorry, we restrict the information that Joe Public can actually see or find out about that flight. However, if an authority wished to find out about that flight, perhaps they would like to know a little bit more about who that person is that's flying. So you can allow them a different level of access to go, oh, actually, this is Joe Bloggs. He has the right CAA approvals, mechanisms, certifications. I'm trying to think what they're called now. My mind's gone completely blank. But he has the right approvals or skill sets in order to operate a drone in that particular location. So it allows, having that data, it allows people to understand what is going on in their space and whether it is safe for that operation to actually take place. As I say, it's really, really critical that happens. But the most important thing about this, it is real-time data. So you may look and plan a flight in the future. So I might wish to fly next week. And I can submit that flight plan. This if the flight requires a clearance or an approval, Altitude Angel will send that through to an authority for that flight plan to be approved. And therefore you're planning that operation. However, on the day, you still need to actually check to see whether it is safe to fly. So on the day, you can be out in the field, you can do a last minute check to say, right, has there been an airspace closure? Is there a NOTAM? All of these kind of things. So it's absolutely critical to get real-time data coming through before you even phone up the authority to get the clearance to fly. So you have a complete understanding what is going on in the sky near your operation. And this is why being able to share that data, having a real-time platform, a single point of truth is so important. So that's primarily focusing on VLOS operation, visual line of sight operations. But in the very near future, we're going to go to these BVLOS operations. And therefore, these drones are going to be covering larger distances. And this is where, to understand what is going on in the sky all along that route, it becomes very, very critical. You can start to do strategic deconfliction already. So as somebody submits a flight plan, you can say, no, other drones are operating in here. You might wish to avoid a particular area because there's lots of crewed aviation in that airspace, or there's crewed activity planned in that airspace, something along those lines. So we can start to plan, and then we can start to use the airspace more efficiently. The key to it all is we don't want to segregate drones in the airspace. We don't want to segregate crewed and uncrewed aviation. We want to be able to integrate the airspace. And only by submitting flight plans, by planning and adopting the right behaviours, we'll be able to have this safe environment where crewed and uncrewed aviation can work together. And this is something critical that Altitude Angel are doing, and we're building the technology in order for that to happen. I think I may be running out of time. That's why I suddenly speed it up right at the end. I don't really have anything else to say. However, we'll be happy to take any questions anybody might have.
That's fantastic, both Phil and Ryan. Thank you very much for a very good overview of both the regulation side of things and also what you do at Altitude Angel in particular with respect to the Guardian UTM and how that all fits together. We've got a couple of questions already, which is great. We'll come to those in a moment. Please do add them. This is your time and your opportunity to ask these questions, so please do make the most of it. Okay, our first question is, I submitted a flight plan directly to the CAA and it wasn't uploaded to the NOTAM system. Should I be chasing the CAA up to find out why this may be the case?
Sorry, go on, Phil.
I was just going to say, if you're submitting a NOTAM, it usually goes to the NOTAM office with NATS and not direct to the CAA. So that's kind of an interesting one, how the person submitted a flight plan directly to the CAA. The normal process will be you submit a NOTAM, it's got to go to the NOTAM office with NATS, and then NATS will review that NOTAM or that request, and then it will go onto the NOTAM system, goes to Eurocontrol publish it for the whole of Europe. It's interesting, actually. If they wish to reach out to Altitude Angel, hello at Altitude Angel, we were happy to look into that. I just need a little bit of clarity of exactly what they did and why that NOTAM wasn't accepted. I don't have anything to add, Ryan. Sorry, I was
hello at altitudeangel.com.
Yes, yeah.
Is that lovely? Great. That's very helpful, thank you. And next question is, do drone assist, drone safety map or operator portal cost anything to use? And Cos, I'm going to pass this one over to you.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. The answer is no. Those are products for drone operators and drone users, and they are all free to use. It's safety and planning is the most critical part of a safe sky for all air users. It is important that those are free applications for drone operators when planning and conducting flight.
Can I quickly add to that? Our CEO is really quite firm about this. He said, we are not going to make any money on safety data, safety information. Safety is our absolute priority, and therefore everybody should be able to have access to that data in order to ensure safe flight. So it's really is ingrained into our policy, Altitude Angel's policy, that data is there and it's free to access for everybody.
That's great. Thank you. That's really helpful. Question from Mark. At present, when I load flight plans into Altitude Angel, Network Rail are notified / connected, but Transport for London don't seem to be, e.g. London Overground or underground tracks that are overground. Is TfL notified?
Something we'd have to check. I don't think they are, because Network Rail have their own system for submitting flight plans, and because they use some of our technology, they're on our network, we automatically will send flight plans through to them and they can see all the activity going on. Currently, Transport for London, but we need to check to confirm this, they don't have a mechanism to receive drone flight plans, and that would go for the London Underground also. It would be very, very simple for them to set something up like that, for them to receive data like that. But I don't think they've got that mechanism at the moment. But something we'd have to check.
Okay, thank you. That's a really handy one. Have you worked on any alternatives that don't require ground sensors?
Have we worked on any alternative that don't? So is that the detect? I think they're referring to a ground-based detect and avoid. Would that be it? I think.
Sophie, do you want to give us either sort of quick chat or a little bit of more to that?
If Sophie's typing, can I just add to something? The purpose, the basis of a ground-based detect and avoid and our technology called Arrow technology is we want to reduce the cost of entry for drone operators, and we're trying to get more and more people to use drones. The more sensors you actually have on the drones, the higher the cost of that drone is, and therefore the business case associated to using the drone no longer stands. So if we can reduce the cost of entry, i.e. take away all those sensors and put them on the ground, more people will be able to access the airspace, reducing the cost of entry, and then more business cases will stand, and hopefully more people will use drones in order to support their industry, support their base, their company, sorry. So that's the purpose of a ground-based detect and avoid. I'm not sure whether that aligns to what Sophie was after.
Sophie, do you want to ask your question?
She's on mute if she's trying to speak.
Here we go. Hang on. Let me see if I can.
She said it's been answered now. Looks like.
Okay,
Oh,
that's perfect. Oh, you see it. Great. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Lovely. Okay. Where have we got to? Is drone assist flight submission voluntary at the moment? That's a very good question.
Yes. All drone flight plans, and Ryan, I think you probably be able to confirm this or correct me on this one, are voluntary. You don't have to submit flight plans at all. The great thing is, though, what we're seeing is the numbers of flight plans that are submitted onto the Guardian UTM platform are increasing exponentially. If you'd asked me this question 5 years ago, I said, yeah, we'd have got 5 or 6 a month. Now we're getting thousands upon thousands a month coming onto the platform. I can't remember the exact figure because I can't break it down between UK and the rest of the world, but there are tens of thousands coming onto the system, and they are all voluntary, which is absolutely brilliant. Because of, just as Ryan said, and the training that he does to instill that professionalism, to instill the right behaviours, people are starting to do it, which is absolutely fantastic.
That is absolutely great. Absolutely, I'm delighted to see that the numbers are involved. Lovely. Coming back to Mark, he said also in terms of notifying other agencies or other large organisations, does National Highways have a route into your system as well? He recently had to do a flight op near a busy A road, but were unable to advise National Highways through Altitude Angel.
Oh, I need to speak to our customer success team, exactly who's got it. Can I just take that question away? If we can take that question away, Eleanor,
yeah.
and what we'll do is we can answer the person directly. I'm not 100% sure of where we are with Highways England. Or Highways Agency, I should say. We've spoken to them a number of occasions. I know we've had lots of conversations. I can't tell you exactly where we are with them at the moment.
That's fine. I've made a note of that, Mark and Phil, and I'll come back to you with that. I'm glad we can sort of enable these conversations there. They're really handy. How do you make sure that a flight plan that I may submit for a job will be seen by an airport, for instance?
That's another one. Right. So if you go onto Drone Assist or a Drone Safety Map, what you're starting to notice is that the airport will have, if you click on the airport, the likes of Battersea Heliport, for example, Biggin Hill, I'm trying to think of the others and I can't, my mind's gone blank. You'll have a UTM ready label. If you click on that UTM ready label, anything with the UTM ready means if you click on that, submit the flight plan, that flight plan will go through to the airport. And therefore, they will respond and the drone operator or the drone flyer will get a response. That's usually done, and that can be done via email. The response comes via email, and also if you submitted a mobile phone number, it'll come through to the mobile phone. It comes through as a text message as well. If they are not, if there isn't a UTM ready label, no, we cannot guarantee that that airport is going to get that that flight plan. What will happen is it will get disseminated onto our platform, and it gets disseminated across every single app that uses our platform. Now, we are aware that a lot of airfields, especially minor airfields, will have drone safety map on a tablet or something, and they can actually take a look to see if there's any activity in the local area. But no, we can't force airports to have this data. It'd be great if we could. We are speaking to the aviation minister and stuff like this, how you digitise and how you disseminate the information better. Conversations are going forward, and of course, we really would love to engage with all of these airfields, airports, to make sure that the information can be disseminated safely.
Can I just interject at that point, just to say that we do have 3 different levels of what we call UTM readiness when it comes to an FRZ. As Phil mentioned, there are those that are what we call UTM ready, and they're integrated within our platform, within the Guardian platform. So there is a digital permissioning ability and communication between both the drone operator and the FRZ. The second one is called basic, and where there's a basic level of readiness, we do in fact create a notification that is emailed to both the FRZ drone permissioning email address and team and the drone operator with the flight plan and all the details. Now, that doesn't mean that the FRZ can permission through that email, but it connects both the drone operator and the FRZ to have that discussion, but with all the flight details in a really handy, easy format so that it can be permissioned in an easier and quicker fashion. But obviously, as Phil said, what we would like to see is that FRZs are all UTM ready in order to facilitate digital permissioning.
That's great, thank you. That slightly sort of comes into actually the next question. What are the benefits of submitting a flight plan through Drone Assist over going to the airport directly to achieve permission?
I'm hoping we've probably covered that.
I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would want to say is that it is always the drone operator's responsibility to ensure that they have obtained permission. What we're doing, if you're not UTM ready, is we're facilitating the permissioning, but we're not, we're not giving the permission. That's for the FRZ or airport to actually do.
Indeed. This is probably one for Ryan. Are RAEs training remote pilots to use Drone Assist or similar compatible apps?
I mean, I can't speak for any other RAEs because obviously it would be within their training material, but within our course that we do, yes, we cover it in quite a lot of depth on our course. So yeah, comprehensively is the answer to that question. We cover it, but I don't know if other RAEs do or not, but I would imagine so.
Indeed, they absolutely, and I would certainly hope to do that they do as well. Thank you, Ryan. can another drone assist user contact you about your flight plan without your contact information being displayed publicly? So I guess that's sort of about the level of data that's available.
No, so we won't put any personal data out on a general app or anything like those lines. So the answer would be no to that, but I can check with our techies to understand exactly what information is put out there. Personal data, obviously, we've got to be very, very careful about how we share that data with GDPR issues. So no, is in short.
That's fine. That's great. Do we have any more questions at the moment? We have gone through the ones listed, which is great, and thank you very much. A really good range of questions there, actually, and clearly much needed as well. I think we've covered some really useful areas there. I'm going to give our wonderful audience. Oh, there we go. How to update the info on the DSM, or how does one update the information on the DSM?
That should be all automatic. The whole purpose of DSM, Drone Safety Map, to game with drone assists or anything on our platform, is it's all automated data, real-time data. So, and what I mean by that is NOTAMs. As soon as a NOTAM is published, within a minute, it's going to be on Drone Assist and Drone Safety Map. So I'm a little bit confused by the question. If for some reason your computer is not updating it, or you're not getting the most up-to-date information, could I ask you just to reach out to Hello Altitude Angel again, and we'll get a techie to, perhaps I can get a techie to actually answer that. Mm-hmm. I'm not technically minded. I've already said, I'm an ATCO by trade. I'm sorry. I'll struggle to answer, to give a sensible answer to that, but I can find out the answer. I don't understand why it's not. You just kind of, I would literally come out of the thing and go back into again, and hopefully all the latest software's there. Coptrz, have you ever heard anything like that happening at all?
No, I haven't. What you see on Drone Safety Map is the current, it's real time, so there shouldn't be an issue there. And as Phil said, if you are experiencing some form of issue, then please do get in touch. But know that sort of the whole reason d'etre of Drone Safety Map and our planning tools is that what you're seeing is live information.
That's great. So I think the attendee has just come back and said, that's great. I just wanted to ask how up to date the info is. Apologies. That's great. But actually really good to know all of that it really is up to date to the minute. So that's really positive.
Just quickly on that, any closure of airspace, as soon as they're published by the CAA, NATS, Eurocontrol, everything is updated straight away and literally within a minute. And then also you get more general information updates from the AirAct cycle. So every 28 days you get those kind of updates as well. Will all come in. So as soon as an official document or digital piece of information has been changed or is changed or published, within minutes it will be updated. Drone Safety Map and all our platform will be updated.
Great. Absolutely amazing. I have to say, I don't think I've sat down in detail and seen how much that Altitude Angel are doing. Clearly, I know very much what Coptrz does in terms of the training side of things, but that was a really good insight into what you are doing at Altitude Angel. I like the fact that you were able to give us so many sort of detailed answers, but also to give us an opportunity to contact the technical side of things as well. That's really handy. I'll make sure that email is available when I follow up after this session as well, so that people can ask those questions or reconfirm them. And Phil and Mark, I'll put you both in touch too. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. If you have further questions, I know that Phil is certainly contactable, or again, hello@altitudeangel.com. For further training, I'm sure Ryan at Coptrz will be delighted to take a phone call as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And in terms of when it comes to further webinars as well, here at ARPAS UK, we have got plenty going on. At the beginning of November, we have a webinar with our CEO on the introduction to SORA, risk assessment methodology in the specific category, a topic that is most definitely fairly high on those who are operating in that area. Then mid-November, we have Dr. Suit, drone swarm for uncrewed inspection of offshore wind turbines, which I think will be a fascinating side of things to find out more about this particular topic. We have a number of webinars that are available to watch again, both on YouTube and our website, and definitely encourage you to do so. There's some great topics coming through. If you'd like to know more, please do get in touch. And if there are topics you would like to see as well, we are always keen to make sure that the audience is actually being given the content that they're looking for. Please do contact me, elena.major@arpas.uk, and we can see what we can do from within our wonderful membership. Thank you very much, Ryan, Phil, and Cos. A great session today, really handy. We'll get that up on the website very shortly, and let's see what we can do. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening this evening. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.